morning, everyone. I'm another one of the people that is in the young category and not getting older. You'll notice nowadays that the style is that we wear our hair white or grey. It's very popular. I often wonder when I stand up at these events whether anybody has any interest in what I'm saying. So I'd just like to calibrate it. Anybody out there use electricity? Okay, a few of you. Anybody use that electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Yeah, absolutely. Modern society is entirely dependent on electricity. You do not want to be in a hospital waiting for an operation, wondering whether the power's going to go out while they've got you opened up and they're working on you. Even simple things like our offices cannot run unless we have reliable electricity, because our computers go down, they crash, and if they're anything like my computer, they come up working some different way to the way they did when they went down, and you're completely lost for an entire day until an IT expert turns up. We are entirely dependent upon it. And yet, we have some very significant challenges in understanding how electricity works. Our electricity system is remarkably complex, and it is the most perishable commodity that we use in our lives today. Electricity is produced and used instantaneously, and one of the challenges for our electricity system is that we never know when people are going to be using it. There are trends and patterns, but then there are hockey games and things like that that come along to confuse the system. So it's a very difficult system and requires a lot of balance. And I want to talk a little bit today to start with about balance, because it's very important to us. And we have some challenges to our system that are throwing us out of balance. The first thing I wanted to draw people's attention to is the fact that I'm useless with technology. The big button. There we go. Okay, so this is probably the most frightening statistic I've come across recently, and that is that more than 3/4 of Ontarians do not know where their electricity comes from. And yet, most of those people are involving themselves in discussions about where it should come from. So it's very much the blind leading the blind. More frighteningly, 50%, more than 50%, over half of Ontarians believe they know where their electricity comes from and have got it wrong. So if we're running our electricity system on a democratic system, it's going to be a disaster. And as I think Jason was saying, occasionally nowadays, unfortunately, policy goes to one side in order to deal with political matters. And that can be a challenge, particularly when we're dealing with long-term strategic issues. So that is an education point that we've got to move past and get people to understand so that we can start making the right decisions. I can understand why they don't make the right decisions, and I've completely made this statistic up. I'm often discussing nuclear energy with anti-nuclear groups. They make their statistics up, so I thought, what the hell? I might as well do the Anyway, so these are very clearly mine, and it's just an assessment broadly about what goes on in Ontario at the moment. Media attention, almost entirely on wind and solar. And these are very important technologies, and we should certainly be investigating them, that they have a lot to offer us. But the attention is something in that size. Nuclear has had a couple of discussions lately, gets a word in now and then. Natural gas, virtually never mentioned unless you happen to live in Oakville, and we're not going to be mentioning it much in the future either. So I actually come from Oakville. Okay. So that's the kind of layout as to what people are reading about, and likely what is driving their decisions in terms of the importance, and one of the reasons they may be confused. Because this is what the supply system actually looks like. And these graphs have been, pie charts have been deliberately made too small for you to read, because you're going to help me understand them in a minute, because I really want to drive this point home. Two important categories, and showing the trends from 2003 to 2009. Installed capacity is if you ran all of your electricity generation, that would be the proportion coming from various different technologies. The production capacity, because you don't run all your generators all of the time, the production capacity is how much of your electricity in the year came from the various different technologies. So this is the important one. And you can see here that nuclear in the province of Ontario produces way over half of our electricity. It pretty much has always done so during the period that Ontario has been a manufacturing province. It's a very important part of our electricity production system. To give you some concept, what I'd like to do is could everybody behind the microphone stand up so that you can be our nuclear fleet? I'd like to try and demonstrate exactly what these proportions are. I'll it's not too difficult, you just... There you go. So you are, get used to standing our nuclear fleet, and you will operate somewhere between 90 and 95% of the time. Now, I'd like to establish our wind generators. And I thought, the mayors, would they like to stand up and identify themselves? Well, the story behind this is that I thought wind is very important. When I heard and I would say that 2 weeks ago you'd have been on your feet much quicker and probably taken away. So the mayors can be our wind generators. It did say in my notes, calling important people, but before that I said find a couple of windbags. Mayors seem to come to mind. Anyway, so you're our wind generators. So now could you sit down again? Okay, can you stand up? Can you keep doing that now at about roughly that time scale? That's Ontario's wind generators coming on and offline. Bob, we're going to do solar. Bob, you're a bright, sunny disposition. Are you still around? Exactly. I'd like you to raise your arm in the air because your arm is our solar power. In fact, your solar biomass and all of the rest put together. And in fact, if you look out the window there, you actually don't need to put your arm up at all. So that's the reality. It's like the mayors have stopped bobbing up and down. I really wanted to see that. But that's the reality of our situation. And the reason I wanted you to do that, you may sit down in a minute. The reason I want you to do that is to put the reality of the situation into people's minds. There are a lot of anti-nuclear campaigners, complainers is probably as good a word, that are out there at the moment that are trying to say that we shouldn't invest in our nuclear fleet, we should put all of our money into solar and wind. And I hope you can see from this that whilst it may be a good idea to invest in solar and wind, you cannot take your eye off the nuclear fleet if you want to have a successful 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week electricity system. And we have some challenges to our system. And they are that we know that Pickering is going to be taken out of service in 10 years' time. Before then, we are going to have to take the Darlington units down for refurbishment. So if we are going to have clean, non-greenhouse gas emitting electricity generation to replace Pickering, we need to be starting to plan Darlington 2, and actually we need to be making progress on that project in the very near future. The cycle time for a nuclear project is 10 years from when you really start work to when you start connecting into the grid and producing electricity. So we don't have the luxury of time for these decisions. So my first message today is we mustn't take our eye off the nuclear ball. We do have to keep the province aware of the fact that it's got to be making that decision and it's got to be making it soon. Otherwise, we won't have the electricity that we need to run our industries, and that will be a disaster. The upside, I just wanted to make a comment about Sweden. Sweden, I tell people, is a country of about 10 people. 5 of them are very rich, and they have villas in the Mediterranean that they go to for the winter when the power demand is high. They're also a country that is used to their government telling them what to do, and they go along and do it. It's very different to Canada. It has plentiful resources, and it took a decision a number of years ago to exploit those resources to the maximum and not to invest in their nuclear program. They did that. Last year they came back and they said, we can see the futility of trying to build a modern nation on a dream, and they re-established their nuclear program. So we're not the first people that have been too distracted by these other issues. And they've had to turn around and come back. The same's true now of the United Kingdom and a number of other countries. Benefits to the region are that the great thing about nuclear power is that the jobs are created at the point where you generate the electricity, not where you dig the stuff up out of the ground. That's a fantastic benefit to the region. Great leader that we had here, Gregory Smith, used to be the site VP for Darlington. He used to say, the only more labour-intensive way of producing electricity at the site or in a region is to put people on treadmills and make them run to produce the electricity. And he's kind of right. They are very good employers, and they are employers locally. And that's why actually nuclear power plants are very popular in their localities. They create jobs, as Jason said. Each job that you produce has spin-off jobs, as well as the jobs on the site, which are well-paid, jobs for highly skilled people. They're also the safest industrial jobs in the province. So you should want your children to go and work at nuclear sites. I found out recently that the divorce rates amongst nuclear engineers are in the lowest category of all divorce rates. So you should not only want your children to come and work at nuclear sites, you should want them to marry people that go and work at nuclear sites as well. There's benefits all over it. And there are spin-off jobs all around. Nuclear sites require telephones, they require computer services, they require coffee shops as the people drive into the site. So huge opportunity for Tim Hortons as we build these facilities. And they operate for 60 years. 10 years to build them, 60 years to operate them, 10 years thereafter, a fair amount of work as you close them down again. So if you want to create solid jobs, once you've got a nuclear facility there, it goes up, people can go and work there for their entire career if they want to, and retire from that one facility in certainty that it will still be operating. So tremendous local economic benefits. There is a renaissance taking place in the nuclear industry around the world. In the early 2000s, there were no new plants being ordered. And today, as I stand before you, there are 50 new units in construction around the world. There are something like 400 in planning phases. I did this slide less than 3 months ago, and during that period, Vietnam, that was up there as a most unlikely project, came right through and is now right at the bottom end of the sales funnel, about to place an order. That's the kind of thing that's happening. UAE recently placed an order for 4 nuclear reactors. If I had stood before you even 5 years ago and told you that the United Arab Emirates would be buying 4 nuclear reactors, you'd have asked me what I was smoking. And a fair number of you would probably ask me whether you could have some too. Now, what's the size of these projects? Well, that United Arab Emirates project, Korea was actually successful in winning that. It's a shame Canada is in the business of selling nuclear reactors, or it used to be, and we'd like to get it back into that position. But the Koreans won this one. They have a very substantive drive into the nuclear industry. They've recognised the opportunity. And when they went back to their people, they said, we've just signed a project for 4 nuclear reactors with the United Arab Emirates. You probably don't know what that means, but you build super tankers. So let's tell you what it means in terms of super tankers. Those 4 units are worth 180 orders for a 300,000-ton super tanker. That's a 300,000-ton super tanker. And this is going to be 180, 300,000-ton super tankers. Imagine the value of that in this region if we could have secured that project and be doing that project. We don't build super tankers, so that clever people will realise that's not 180, so we need a couple more to come in. And really clever people will realise that even with the 4 that I had here, I'm still one missing. But that was the one on the previous slides. It's actually a total of 180. Huge amount of work. We don't build super tankers here, so let me put it in another context. That one project was worth the same as an order for 1 million cars. That's about 2/3 of Canada's entire output in a year of vehicles. So a tremendous order, and that was 4 units, 50 are in construction, 400 are going to be built. That's the market size that we have out there. Canada used to be in the business. We have our own brand, the CANDU brand. Atomic Energy of Canada Limited are being restructured at the moment. Nobody wants to buy a reactor from a company when they don't know that company is going to be in existence to support it. So it's very, very important that the government gets on with the job and successfully partners AECL with people that have the money to take that technology forward and to create the benefits for the region that would come out of manufacturing components equivalent in size to a project of that magnitude. So in conclusion, we've got to keep appropriate attention on what really makes a difference to the electricity in the province, and that's our nuclear fleet. The Darlington second station will immediately create jobs, an enormous project, a construction project in the region, and then will create sustaining jobs into the far distant future. And then if we use it for a strategic reason to demonstrate the capabilities that we have with our own technology, we'll then be able to go and sell that around the world, and we will be the people making those 300,000-ton super tankers. Thank you very much.